What's going on, everybody? I appreciate everybody joining in. This is a brand new series that I'm putting on called Interview with Warfighters. And this is going to be episode 1. During my 20 years in the Marine Corps, I've met a lot of interesting individuals, a lot of interesting people who've did great things while they were in the Marine Corps, and they also did great things after leaving the Marine Corps. Also, with my connections with One Shepherd and stuff, I've met other people of other services. This is something I want to do going forward. Chad, if you can mute your mic real quick, man, it's got some echo.
Hold on.
This is something I want to do going forward, guys. I just want to interview some of these people and highlight them to the broader audience out there. So, we see a lot of stuff over the years over like special operations guys and Navy SEALs and Green Berets and all this other stuff. But people don't really interview the standard grunts, right? The ground pounders that are on the ground, leaving the freaking patrol bases, going out, kicking in doors, and then coming right back to a patrol base still in the shit. So that's what I thought I'd do. I start doing a series here, interviewing with warfighters, and episode 1 is going to be over my good buddy, Staff Sergeant Chad Cada, United States Marine Corps, and I welcome him on tonight, man. Welcome to the
Glad
show.
to be here, man.
Episode 1. So I guess we'll start this off, man. So again, thanks for coming on. Very first episode on this little series. Hopefully it, does good and people are interested in this and we get some more attention to this. But I couldn't think of anybody better to do than you for the first one.
I appreciate that.
So let's go back, man. Let's go back to high school. So your senior, junior year in high school, whenever it was, what made you decide to join the Marine Corps?
Well, it probably started before high school. I grew up watching G.I. Joe and 80s action flicks like Aliens and Predator. I think Predator is probably the biggest recruitment propaganda film out there for the military. But that was my favorite movie growing up, and I wanted to, emulate guys like Arnold and be the badass and go forth and destroy whole villages and stuff like that. So that really kind of started it all for me. Initially, I wanted to join the Army because I wasn't aware the Marine Corps had infantry. I wanted to do the infantry forever. Once I found out, this was probably a sophomore year in high school. Once I found out the Marine Corps had infantry, I was like, yeah, that's where I'm headed. So enlisted in the delayed entry program at 17 and did that for the remainder of high school and then off to boot camp.
So what was your like when you first got to recruit training? Like first impressions, getting there at the I assume you went to MCRD San Diego, right?
Correct.
So getting on the bus, going to the MCRD San Diego, getting off the bus, stepping on those yellow footprints. Talk me through that, man. What were your first impressions, feelings?
I had watched so many, boot camp videos and stuff before that I kind of knew what to expect. I should also preface this by saying during my freshman year in high school, I attended the Marine Military Academy in Harlingen, Texas. So I had an introduction to the Marine culture and everything well before I went in the Marine Corps. Wasn't scared, was very excited. I knew what to expect. I knew there was going to be yelling in your face, stress, all that stuff. I was just ready to do it.
So I think one thing that's very interesting, I just from knowing you over the years, I know this, 9/11 actually happened while you were in recruit training. So what was that like, man? Did they, how did the drill instructors break that news to you? Because it's not like there's TVs in the squad bays and, recruits watching TV all the time.
Good question. Well, we were on the rifle range. We were on range week. I think week 1 of range week. So snapping in, and my senior drill instructor, I believe he's a sergeant major now. His last name was Pompos. He gave us the stereotypical movie speech about how this is it, gents. We're going to war. He had tears coming down his eyes as he was giving this speech. It was definitely a moment that I'll remember until the day I die. The bases were locked down. I think we kind of knew what was coming around the corner because of what happened at 9/11. But yeah, that's my the only really memory I had of what happened.
Did it really sink in though after watching all that unfolding on the news? Like you're going infantry, you went in infantry option. Did it sink in that you were going to war?
Uh, Not at first, because it did obviously take some time for us to get to that point. We didn't invade Iraq until 2003, and this was in November of 2001. So there was definitely some lag time there. But like I said, that speech kind of aroused in me, motivated me further, motivated me to do well in SOI, LAV crewman's course, and kind of that stagnation period between the invasion and 9/11.
It's funny that you mentioned the speeches and stuff. Those speeches absolutely happen. I one of these
Yep.
days I'll do something similar for me in regards to these types of interviews. But like I remember our company commander giving us that type of speech before we were crossing LOD into Iraq. And man, if movie cameras were rolling during those speeches, like they would just be iconic,
Oh yeah.
like
Oh
real
yeah.
deal. So anyway, so moving forward, man. Obviously the crucible is going on during the time you're in. You're getting that Eagle Globe and Anchor, and then you're graduating from recruit training. What'd that feel like becoming a United States Marine for the first time? Actually being called
I,
Marine.
I'm not ashamed to say that I cried when I got my EGA. I was happiest SOB alive. Absolutely just thrilled. I don't have. There's no words in the English language to describe it, but I like I said, I cried. So yeah, it was fantastic.
Yeah, I can't. I mean, I don't even think you can describe like how it is like going through recruit training the whole time you're recruit or something worse. And then to finally be called Marine by your drill instructors is just something special. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah. So, okay. So graduating recruit training, you go to School of Infantry, Camp Pendleton. Um, you went in infantry option. Talk us through SOI. What was your experiences there?
I don't really have a whole lot of memories of SOI. I know it was just a lot of hurry up and wait. I mean, there's so many people that these troop handlers have to deal with. The instructors at SOI. I don't know how we got stuff done, but it's a lot of hurry up, wait. You get to the range, you're waiting some more. You go through whatever exercises they want you to do, and then you'll wait some more. Um, I didn't really learn a whole lot in SOI until we got to Mount Town and started doing CQB type stuff. I had done a little bit of training in high school. Our fellow acquaintance Bruce can tell you all about that, but at Bruce in high school, and we used to train on the weekends. So I didn't really get a whole lot out of SOI until we went to Mount Town. I'm sure you can sympathize with the hurry up and wait, though.
So on that note, because I know you ended up going to LAR and you got to go through like LAV crewman course and all that stuff. Did you have to do Camp Guard before your class picked up, or did you jump right into it?
No, it was immediately after. We had I got lucky because I went to SOI and we got out in December. So we just made it to Christmas leave, December of 2001, and I went on leave and then I came back and then I reported directly into crewman's course. I don't remember how long crewman's course was. It was fun, especially shooting the 25 mic, going to the range and doing that. We had a fourth LAR detachment, the anti-aircraft guys that have the Gatling gun variant of the LAV, and we got to see that shoot. And I'll tell you what, man, boner inspiring.
So can you explain, because I'm sure there's a lot of people in the chat that don't know what an LAV is. Can you kind of explain what an LAV is? I'm going to pull up one of your pictures from my rack just to pull up so guys can see it.
Yeah. LAV stands for Light Armored Vehicle 25. I don't know what the 25 I guess has to do with it because it's a 25 millimeter gun on the vehicle. It's an 8-wheeled all-terrain vehicle. It's amphibious. It can float in water. It's got like a little tank turret on top. It holds a team of scouts. You can hold about it says you can hold a little bit over a fire team in the back, but that's not the case. You can only fit about 4 guys with all their gear in the back. The purpose of LAR is reconnaissance, light armored reconnaissance is what LAR stands for. So they call us the tip of the spear because we're usually in front of all conventional forces, and sometimes we get to do some escort missions for special operations forces. I'll get to that when we get to the invasion in 2003. We actually got to do that, so that's kind of the gist of what LAR is.
So just before we leave SOI here, how did that play off? Because obviously I became a machine gunner and I went to an infantry line company. I didn't obviously become an LAV crewman and everything. You obviously are given the MOS. You become a rifleman? You do the rifleman package first, and then you go to the LAV crewman course?
Correct.
Okay. And do you learn every position in LAV crewman course at that course? Like every position inside the vehicle?
Yeah, you start out as a driver. That's why we call it 03 Motor T. You start out as a driver, and then you work your way up to gunner, and then the vehicle commander obviously is going to be an NCO or higher, so you don't really get a whole lot of gist on that. But you learn vehicle maintenance, kind of the boring stuff to start out with, and then you go to gunnery, and that's the more fun stuff. You're working with a 240 coaxial machine gun as well as the 25 millimeter, and it's got smoke grenades on it as well that can fire out smoke grenades for defensive whatever. So yeah, it was interesting.
And what kind of protection does the LAV offer its crewmen?
I mean, it's got sloped armor. I don't recall off the top of my head what the thickness is of the. I mean, it'll definitely deflect rounds. We had a vehicle take a direct hit with an RPG, and because of the sloped armor, it deflected off and hit something else. But it'll stop everything up to a 50 cal, I believe. So definitely small arms.
And if you guys, let me pull this picture back up. If you guys look at this close, you can see the similarities of like the later Army Stryker vehicles. That's where they got their idea for the Stryker. Essentially, the Stryker vehicles are based off the LAVs that we've been using since, I believe, like the 1980s. So
yeah, they saw their action in Desert Storm. There's a good book out there called Tip of the Spear about LAR and Gulf Storm 1 for those of you interested in books.
Awesome, brother. So you graduate from the School of Infantry. Obviously, now you're a certified LAV crewman. You're assigned to what unit?
I went to Weapons Company, first LAR, which is in Camp Pendleton, California. Started out with the anti-tank guys, so I got to cross train on the TOW missile system, which was kind of interesting. Not my first choice. I was a little hesitant to go to LAVs. The reason I did because I scored high on my all my tests and everything, so they sent all the smart people to LAV crewman's course. I still wanted to be an 11. I was still hesitant about my decision there, and then going to Weapons Company. Got to the fleet. My first major exercise was a CAX. Interestingly, my entire career, I never went to a Marine Corps ball because I was either in Iraq or at CAX, which is in 29 Palms. And for those of you who know about 29 Palms, it's the asshole of America. Camp Wilson is nothing but flat desert and Quonset huts, and so that was my first field exercise was a CAX, and I got to learn quite a bit. It wasn't a complete waste of time, but being a lowly PFC, there was a lot of working parties and bitch work involved as well. So yeah, so CAX was the only major event between that and the invasion in 2003.
So just I know we got a lot of civilians and stuff, and people that are not Marines that are watching. Just so you know that CAX is a massive combined arms exercise that's held out at 29 Palms, California. It integrates essentially everybody: infantry, tanks, vehicles, helos, air assets, the whole 9 yards. They call it ITX nowadays, but back then it was called CAX. But it's kind of like the culmination for units. Once they've do their training cycles and stuff, they go to 29 Palms and they do then CAX, now ITX, to try to prove their worth essentially, because you're finally integrating tanks and armored vehicles, LAVs, AAV, stuff like that into the mix and really putting everything together. All right, so you did your CAX. I assume we're getting close to 2003 Iraq invasion. So Following CAX, what'd you do then?
Um, after CAX, I remember the day we got the phone call to go, but before that, they had divvied up weapons company to go to deploy with different companies. My company was the last to deploy. I got attached. I was still with the TOW LAVs, the TOW missiles, which are anti-tank missiles. Um, I was still with TOWs. We got attached to Delta Company First LAR. Um, February 5th, 2003, got the phone call, said, hey, load up, you're going to war. Um, so we flew over to Kuwait, sat there for what seemed like forever. Uh, I was part of RCT 5 to begin with. Eventually, I would go over to RCT 7, and then part of Task Force Tripoli, which was interesting. But a lot of sitting and waiting in Kuwait. Yeah, and then finally got the okay to go, and went up and sat on the border of Kuwait and Iraq. And I'll never forget crossing over from Kuwait to Iraq. The smell changed. You can kind of smell it. It just smelled different. And I remember that. Started moving northward. There's a good book out there by my company commander of Delta Company, Major Seth Folsom. He's not a major anymore, but at the time he was a major. Major Seth Folsom, called The Highway War. And for those of you who really want an understanding of how the invasion went, which was just a mad dash to Baghdad up Highway 1, that's all it was. That's a good book out there for those of you who are interested. And plus, that kind of details my involvement in that. But yeah, so crossed over, shot north. I think we made it to Al Nazir before we stopped, and once there, we rotated over to a different task force. We escorted it. I believe I can't remember, but I believe I was told this, that we escorted a SEAL team to Saddam's palace in Tikrit. And it was kind of funny because once we got there, Marines do what they do. They offload the vehicles and go looking for souvenirs. Guilty as charged. Guilty as charged. So I actually, at Saddam's palace, was able to find a door with the keys still in it. So I took those keys. So technically, I have the keys to Saddam's palace somewhere in my plethora of war trophies in there. So got to go up to the crit. Most of it's a blur because we didn't sleep a whole lot during the invasion. I know you can probably
So on that, what was your billet inside the vehicle? Were you a driver at that time?
Yeah, at the time I was a driver/scout. I was my lieutenant, my platoon commander happened to be my vehicle commander, and I was always complaining that I wanted to be a scout. So I was the unofficial TOW LAV scout. So every time scouts got to go do stuff, I would hop out the vehicle and go do my thing. So that was kind of fun. But yeah, for the most part, I was a driver.
So how was that? Because I remember during the push, I remember we having a lot of problems with, like vehicles bumping into each other. Cause it's like Chad said, it was nonstop. We were going, we were outrunning our supply lines, and it's like, you didn't sleep. I mean, it was just nonstop. I was in an AAV, so I wasn't in an LAV, AAV. And I was in the back and on air watch. I swear to God, I was on air watch, which is where you have the back hatches open and you're standing up there looking for enemy dismounts or enemy aircraft. I feel like I was up there the whole war.
Yeah,
I don't remember sleeping up there.
Yeah, you mentioned accidents. That did happen quite a bit. I'm not going to mention any names, but an officer very close to us was relieved because of an accident that occurred. So I mean, it did happen quite a bit. And during this would have been kind of winter time, early in 2003. That's their rainy season, so the mud was just all over the place. So yeah, it did happen. Vehicles got stuck, all kinds of craziness. And the roads, obviously, they don't have an infrastructure like we do. So the only road was Highway 1 that went up there, and that's kind of what we stuck to. So,
did you see this is something I found super fascinating. All the destroyed Iraqi armor still like along the way from the Gulf War. It's just
Oh yeah, yeah. Our company Gunny had actually been in LA. I think it was in LAR during the initial Gulf War, and he was pointing out all this stuff about what he remembered. But yeah, it was like a tank graveyard driving north before we hit the Highway 1, driving through the middle of the desert. Yeah, absolutely, I remember that.
So did you guys rotate drivers at all, or is it just kind of incumbent upon you to drive?
Well, every vehicle is assigned one driver. The MOS I had was 0313. That's LAV crewman. And then the 0313 MOS, you can fill one of three billets: drive it, gunner, or vehicle commander. So I had basic gunnery skills, but I wasn't a tow. I didn't know how to operate a tow. I hadn't been to school for a tow other than what my tow gunner had taught me. So the tow variant has an additional billet of one Marine in the very back who's a tow gunner, who is the loader for the tow missile system. So I had to cross train on the loader how to drive so that I could get a break every once in a while.
Yeah.
And so yeah.
Talk to me before we get into like actually seeing combat and stuff like that. Did you see any Iraqi civilians before actually engaging anything?
Oh yeah, we saw Bedouins when we were driving up to the highway from Kuwait. There were Bedouins all over the place, and I remember one of them just pointing that way, pointing north, as if go get Saddam. He's up there. Yep. Go get him. So yeah,
that was exactly my same experience. That's funny. Okay, so you're pushing up main highways. Talk to me about your first combat experience. I mean, obviously we're engaged in combat operations. When was the first time that your unit engaged enemy forces?
We had one major firefight. It was in an apple orchard or some type of orchard. We were coming around the corner and started taking fire. And I was the driver. The first thing I did was pop my hatch, stick up my AR-15, and start firing. That was kind of it. It wasn't really a whole lot. Most combat a lot of combat happened in the cities during that time, and we were still kind of in the rural areas. That was kind of the only major engagement I got in. We did have one LAV that shot a technical that was speeding away. A technical, for those of you who don't know, is just a regular vehicle with insurgents inside of it. Other than that, that was really it, man. We didn't have a whole lot of action that first go round.
Yeah, and so there's like a lot of the push, and people don't realize this. I mean, it's just the movement from Kuwait to Baghdad and Saddam City and some of these other major cities. It was so vast. And like for us, I was in a different regimental combat team. For us, it was just, we were moving so far, so fast, outrunning our supply lines. And, the enemy was letting us pass. And then they were hitting like the log trains, the convoys in the rear. And we'd have to come back to, save them and then, start moving again.
Yep.
We were down to one MRE a day, had to ration water and all that stuff. You go from drinking one canteen every hour on the hour to no, you're only allowed to drink one canteen for the day, and you only get one MRE for the day. Did you guys experience any of that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I can't say we probably had it as bad as you guys did because we had vehicles that could carry large amounts of water. I think every vehicle had like 6 water cans on it. So we probably didn't suffer as bad as you guys did. But yeah, I do remember that the resupply was quite limited.
Did you all have those humanitarian MREs? They were like in yellow.
All those things were awesome, man.
So I'm not trying to steal the thunder here. Like we're going to get back to your story, but I got to interject this, right? Because I'm the infantryman, right? I'm riding into somebody else's vehicle. So if it wasn't for that vehicle, I'd be walking. But we're all starving, right? One MRE a day. And then, once we get to Saddam City and like some of the major fighting has kind of subsided, we find out that the AV crewmen have these humanitarian MREs, which are these huge yellow MREs, way bigger than our standard MREs. And they got all the good shit in it. all the
Stacked with goodies. Stacked with goodies.
Hey, we're starving, man. We look like freaking Ethiopian Marines. And God, when we found out about these, you were like, it was like Dumb and Dumber, man. He's like, my hands are so cold, and he's like, oh, you want these extra gloves? It was kind of one of those moments.
Yeah, those were good. I remember those.
All right, man. So Saddam's toppled. You guys transition, I assume, into security and stability operations. Let's talk me through that.
I do want to mention one person. We did lose one Marine on the push up there, Lance Corporal Jesus Suarez del Solar. It's my understanding he stepped on a mine, and this is something I actually saw. We had pulled off the side of Highway 1, set up in a defensive perimeter for the night. Standard SOP is to punch out scouts, let them kind of patrol the immediate area and kind of look around. Well, he stepped on a mine, and it took the chopper forever to get there, the medevac to get there, and he ended up bleeding out, unfortunately. So we did lose one. I did want to mention his name and shout out to him as well. But afterwards, there was a whole lot of sitting around and waiting. I think it was out Dio and Nia. We just kind of sat around for what seemed like forever until we finally retrograded back. Once all the major threats, like vehicle-borne threats, kind of subsided, there was really no use for LAR units because that's kind of what we're there for, is reconnaissance and dealing with other vehicles. So ended up going back to Kuwait. I enjoyed being there. I really did, because the chow halls, I don't have to tell you, you can look at me and tell I don't miss many meals, but the chow hall in Kuwait was awesome, so I wanted to stay behind as long as possible, not just for the chow, but for the pay as well. Because staying in country, you get a little more money tax free. So I volunteered to stay behind and remain behind party and clean up all our stuff before it was shipped back to the States. So all the guys that went ahead of us got their parade and everything and all that stuff, and I was still stuck in Kuwait. We went to the Nestle factory in Kuwait and got to use all their hoses and stuff to hose down our vehicles and everything. Cleaned all our stuff, sat around for a couple of weeks, then finally got on that plane ride back home. And that was it. That was the end of deployment 1.
I got to ask you this question. So I want to see if your experience was the same. So we went through like the whole deployment with the same uniform, same boots and everything. Like by the time I retrograded back to Kuwait, like my boots were literally splitting at the seams. Like,
yep,
you had 100-mile-an-hour tape essentially holding your boots together. But right before we go home, we get brand new freaking desert jungles and brand new tricolor desert camis.
Yeah. Where was this stuff before we left? Yeah, how about that?
Oh God. And another question I have: did you guys get extended at all when you were in country?
No. We left fairly quickly. Like I said, there was really no use for LAR there, so they shipped us home pretty quick.
Okay, so we got extended like 3 times, man. And I remember before we invaded, I'm pretty sure it was General Mattis was like, Marines are going to go in, we're going to kick the shit out of the enemy, and then we're getting out of there. And then the Army's going to take over and do all that bullshit. But we're going to do all the fighting and go home.
That sounds about right.
I'm paraphrasing, obviously, but it was something along those lines. And then like 3 extensions later, we're still in country. So didn't quite pan out how they originally told us. So. All right, so you get back to the rear. You got 1 combat deployment on your belt. Do you remember anything in between coming back and getting ready to deploy again? Yeah,
so sat around in weapons company for a little bit longer. Then I got transferred over to Charlie Company. And guess what else I did? Another CAX. That was my life when I was back in Garrison, was going to CAX. So I missed another Marine Corps ball. While at CAX in the end of 2003, and then 2004 came along, went over to Charlie Company, and Charlie Company was in rotation to deploy, so we're going to deploy anyway. And interestingly enough, we were supposed to deploy with 1-4 when you guys left in 2004. but 1-4 could not support an entire LAR company. So you guys just took one of our platoons instead of our entire company. So we kind of sat around for a little while, like, Ricky Bobby, what do I do with my hands? Ended up getting deployed to Okinawa for just basic exercises. During that time, I picked up corporal. For those of you are not affiliated with the Marine Corps or anything like that, picking up a corporal, become an NCO at that point, and it's a big step. May not seem like a big step because you're just getting one stripe, but when you become an NCO in the Marine Corps, there's a lot of emphasis on NCO leadership in the Marine Corps. You're kind of one step below God at that point. So in Okinawa, they sent me to corporal's course, and about 2 days into corporal's course, we get pulled out of corporal's course, me and a few other guys, and they're like, hey, we're going back to Iraq. There's going to be this big push on Fallujah. So this was late in 2004. So we loaded up our stuff, got our missing platoon that was with you guys. We got augmented by a platoon from 3rd LAR. So that so we could stack our manpower back up. And then hopped on boats and went to Kuwait. And we were part of the 31st MEU at that point, directly attached to BLT-13. BLT is Battalion Landing Team, and later with RCT 7. So we got in Kuwait. We convoyed up to Camp Fallujah, stayed in Abu Ghraib prison, the infamous Abu Ghraib. So I got to sleep there for a couple months, conducting patrols and feints. Battle Fallujah, what they did was before we went in, they dropped leaflets in the city and said, you have this amount of time to clear out of the city. Anyone left in the city is going to be declared hostile. So it was a free-for-all, pretty much. Everybody civilians and everything were evacuated from the city and put in camps outside the city. So before we went in, which was on Operation Phantom Fury, officially began November 7th, 2004. Before that, we were just conducting patrols and feints outside the city, along with other Marine units and other Army units. And then November 7th actually kicked it off.
Trying to share a screen here. Pull up a picture. All right. So talk to me about this picture, man, because I saw this earlier in preparation for this, and so I'm looking at this picture, and this devil dog, which is you, he's got his primary M16, right? And if you guys can see, he's literally got an AK slung over his body, and then I think that's a small rocket, right?
That is a small rocket, yes. During the course of the deployment, we had some vehicle issues, so I had the opportunity to become a scout team leader, which was like my dream. And a lot of the guys that were scouts carried AKs, and we were given Benelli M4 shotguns, the door breacher kind, and a number of door breaching rounds. But we found that the AK could shoot through a door lock fairly efficiently, a lot better than M16 could. So a lot of us carried AKs just to breach doors that were locked. So that's why I had that AK. But there's another picture. This picture was actually taken by a man named Scott Peterson, who was an embedded reporter with us. He's got a library of pictures from my unit. But this one, and there's another one of me running across the street before I hit the wall there to go up into this compound and clear this house. But yeah, that's why we all had AKs, because they were great for breaching doors.
I think that's hilarious, because I know like 30 years from now, you're going to have these people that are going to be arguing. And the only reason I'm saying this, because I follow these like Vietnam War, Facebook groups and World War II Facebook groups. And you always have these people that weren't even there, but they're like self-professed subject matter experts, right? And then you see these arguments all the time, like, yeah, he never had those, or, stuff like that. And Bruce, I know Bruce, if he was on here, he'd be saying the same thing, but you guys are seeing it firsthand. You got a Marine with an AK slung, because I know like 30 years from now, there's going to be somebody that's going, Marines weren't allowed to carry AKs and they never had them and blah, blah, blah. Well, you guys are seeing it firsthand right here. They got a freaking AK slung over there.
Well,
So
I've got an interesting story for this that your viewers might enjoy. So, like I said, I was a scout team leader, and I remember at one point we were clearing a house, and this house was guarded by one of the most beautiful German Shepherd dogs I've ever seen in my entire life. The dog wouldn't let us anywhere near him because we were going to take him, but that didn't happen. So we were clearing the downstairs, and I enter one of the bedrooms, and there's this giant mirror in front on the other side of the room from the door that I entered in, and I could see my reflection, and I'd also see what was behind the door, and there was a rifle behind the door, and I immediately recognized it. So I immediately shouted out, "That's my fucking rifle!" And I kept yelling over and over. Everybody's like, "What are you talking about?" So I reached behind the door and pull out an SVD Dragunov, Soviet-made Dragunov sniper rifle, and I slung it. I took it outside. My platoon commander, Lieutenant Paul Weber, was a very unorthodox person. I know we discussed earlier that you found a picture on my Facebook of a Marine carrying a PPSH. Was it 41, 43, whatever that 41?
yeah,
I think.
got it. Give me a second. I'll pull it up.
He was a very unconventional man. I enjoyed my time with him as my platoon commander. But I showed him that Dragunov, and he's like, "We're gonna use this. We're gonna use it." So during some course of a few days, we had been taking fire from the north part of the city. Yeah, that's him right there. Yeah, that's a great gun for CQB for anybody interested.
As the Russians found out.
As the Russians found out, exactly. But anyway, we'd been taking sniper fire on a daily basis from our company CP from the north side of the city. And so I talked to my platoon commander to let me lead a little small operation, a little contingent of Marines up there, and just going to go sit up there and wait, because they did it during the daytime. They didn't have high-speed night optics, so they would do it in the morning or during the evening. But it was like clockwork. They did it every day. So about 3 o'clock in the morning, me and a couple other scouts moved off from our company CP, went and set up, and I had this Dragunov with me, and I only had about 6 rounds with it. I didn't even know if it was sighted in, but I was bound and determined to shoot a terrorist with this thing, and unfortunately nothing happened that one time. But it's still an interesting story because I got to potentially use this enemy weapon, this high-speed enemy weapon that we had captured. So yeah.
Yeah, I know the feeling, man. I had a spade grip. I don't know if you ever heard this story, but I had a spade gripped PK machine gun that I tried to put into service during the Battle of the it didn't work out, man. And there was a string. It was super ghetto, man. There was a string attached to the bolt, and like you would pull the string to cock it because the cocking lever was broken off. So I did my best, but it just didn't work.
That's hilarious.
Talk to me about this photo right here, because this seems pretty interesting. What's going on here?
So this has to do with the sniper fire that we're taking from our company CP. They would shoot at our guys that were on top of the roof, basically, go on guard duty at that point. So at one point, I don't remember if this was before or after the Dragunov patrol, but we got sick and tired of got fed up with getting sniper fire. So we got a FAC, which is a forward air controller, basically somebody who calls in airstrikes. And we sat up on this roof, and they did end up taking some shots. So the FAC called in an airstrike on where we thought the snipers were. It may have been a little overkill, but that's what we were doing. Is we were waiting on top of the roof there to get hit, more or less, try to find out where it was coming from, because we didn't really have an idea. So that's when that picture was taken.
I want to point out to guys, because I know there's probably a lot of people in here that are like, really interested in like gear and stuff like that. 2004 was a very interesting time. The Marine Corps had just adopted the digital MARPAT camouflage in, I think, early 2003, maybe late 2002. And not very many people had it. So literally both my deployments in 03 and 04, I didn't have MARPAT camouflage until my second deployment in 04. And so you literally had a mixture of guys, wearing both tricolor desert camouflage as well as digital camouflage. And then you also had a mixture of guys with woodland camouflage interceptor vests and guys with coyote interceptor vests.
Yeah, it was an interesting time for gear. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, and then our weapon systems were evolving. So it's like, we were talking about Chad's first deployment and stuff, and it's like we got M16A2s, but now you look at these OIF2, 2004 photos, and it's like, hey, we got M16A4 service rifles. And I saw somebody already comment in the comment section. They're like, hey, look at that A4 with a carrying handle on it. We don't even have optics for it yet. Yeah, that was true. When I deployed in OIF2, we went there we got brand new M16A4 service rifles, brand spanking new. And let me tell you guys, they were sweet. Like, we looked at those and they're like, oh my God, these things are awesome. But they had no optics, man. They were just carrying handles. It was just, we were ecstatic about like the rails and stuff.
It was a slow process to get where we are today. Absolutely.
Yeah. The first optic I ever got was after the Battle of Najaf, and it was a reflex sight that attached to the carrying handle of the not the carrying handle, sorry, the actual rail, top rail. So it's like you still had your iron sights, but you had the reflex sight attached. It was a Trigicon. I don't remember the designation of it, but that was the first optic I ever had in my Marine Corps career. Other than that, it was iron sights, baby.
There you go.
So okay, so I want to point out. So you said you were at Abu Ghraib prison, which is freaking crazy, man. It's like our paths like just barely missed each other because after.
Well, like I said, we were supposed to go with you guys on that deployment where you went to Najaf. We were supposed to be with you guys, but 1-4 couldn't support an entire company. They only took one of our platoons.
Yeah, and I remember those guys, man, hooking and jabbing in the Najaf cemetery. But after Najaf, they sent us up to Abu Ghraib prison to relieve one rifle company at Abu Ghraib to go take part in Fallujah. And I think Fallujah was only like 15 miles or something away from Abu Ghraib prison. It wasn't that far.
Oh, no, it's a lot closer than that. It's like maybe 3 miles at the most. It's really close.
Yeah, I believe it, because the reason I say that is like not only could we hear the artillery every night, dude, the 25 millimeters from you guys' LAVs, all day long. It was awesome. I mean, we were so pissed. I mean, yeah, we just got some in Najaf, but like we knew that this was going to be a big deal, right? We knew this was going to be a big offensive, and to be an infantry Marine and not be able to take part in that was just like, oh, we were so butthurt.
Oh, I can imagine the frustration. I can imagine.
All right, so talk me through just a little bit more about Fallujah, man, because obviously that was a big fight, house to house.
House to house fighting. The houses were so close together. I mean, they were literally side by side. There was no room between them. So what we would do is we would spend days just clearing blocks, and you would start on one side of the street. You would clear the first house from the bottom to top. Then you would jump on the roof of the house and clear the next one from top to bottom. And it would just be this zigzag pattern up and down the streets. I mean, there was a firefight every day. It was just chaos. I think in estimates where there were about 1,500 insurgents in the city before it was evacuated. So we had to hunt all these guys down. Kind of the major culmination of combat came when I lost my platoon sergeant. This was an ambush, and my XO had mentioned to me later on when I connected with him that these guys who ambushed us were Chechnyan sniper insurgents from Chechnya who had, some combat experience, obviously, from fighting the Russians. But we were patrolling down the street, and our lead vehicle started taking fire. Had some scouts out that got injured, and they were trying to evac the scouts. Well, we were the second vehicle. We were kind of back a little ways. So my platoon commander, who's also my vehicle commander, pushed our vehicle forward and, tried to locate, we were getting shot up from all directions. It was just, anybody who's been in a urban terrain, been in a firefight, it's 3-dimensional. You're taking fire high, you're taking fire low. Couldn't really pinpoint where the enemy was. Well, my platoon sergeant was standing up, manning the 240, and happened to get shot in the neck. Died pretty much instantly. So shout out to him. We lost 3 other guys: Kyle Burns, Pike Magway, and Jason Smith. Shout out to those Marines as well. during the course. But yeah, it was an urban nightmare, absolute nightmare. It was a paradise if you were a guerrilla fighter, because you could just shoot, run and hide, shoot, run and hide. We had guys who were there were some families that decided to remain behind, so we did have some women and children. We did have that situation we did have to deal with periodically, and you had guys who had stuck around and would fight us one day and then pretend that they were friendly the next day, just staying in this house. Hey, we have nothing to do with this. So it was a meat grinder. It was an absolute meat grinder. Highly dynamic. Definitely put whatever I learned mount training, to the test. And I think the Marine Corps learned a few lessons that it passed on to later generations of Marines from Fallujah, because it was so heavily urbanized. And we, like I said, we spent days just clearing houses, top to bottom, bottom to top, top to bottom, bottom to top. So yeah.
Yeah, and one thing I want to point out, guys, is like, we had some mount training, but it's nothing like it is today, right? This back then it was nothing like it is. And I remember back then that they used to tell us, like in mount, I want to say it was like you can expect 70% casualties or something along those lines.
Oh yeah, easy.
Yeah, and then after Fallujah, because of how effective Marines were in the Battle of Fallujah and other fights in Iraq, like those percentages changed drastically. Just because, I mean, these guys, a lot of this stuff was on the job training essentially, right? Because it's like you said, Chad got some mount training in SOI. Like, how much mount did he do in the fleet before, going back over there in 2004, so he literally went from SOI to OIF-1 for the invasion, came back, did a workup, went right back over there. It's like, how much mount do you think he actually got before freaking Fallujah? So, put that in perspective.
The answer to that is not enough.
Right. Yeah, never enough. So, okay. So I saw when I was getting some pictures of your memoirs here. You got a few pictures of like weapons caches, enemy weapons caches and stuff. So talk about like the amount of enemy weapons that were found, post Fallujah, cleaning up, mopping up.
I mean, there were AKs all over the place. I mean, I can remember almost daily they would find weapons, enemy weapons, just stashed in different houses. I don't remember any major things that were found. There may have been, I don't know. A lot of that's a blur because, again, lack of sleep. But yeah, I mean, that's is that a Sterling right there on the right? I think that's a Sterling submachine gun.
We found one too on my second deployment over there in Abu Ghraib prison. We found one out in town after hitting the house. Yeah, it's from the British influence in Iraq.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, it was a daily occurrence to find. This was kind of a daily occurrence. You find 5 or 6 AKs, stuff like that. Like I said, I don't remember anything major. Maybe a Dishka or something like that was found, but nothing too major. That's a lot of RPGs. Oh my God. But yeah, a lot of that's a blur, man. I apologize for not being able to answer your question further, but lack of sleep.
Okay, so post Fallujah, how long did you guys spend in Fallujah before you ended up coming back to Abu Ghraib prison?
Well, the combat operations ceased late December of the same year, 2004, and after that, we basically stayed at Camp Fallujah and conducted patrols, just security patrols in the vicinity. Securing the highway, setting up hasty checkpoints, searching cars, stuff like that. We did that for, God, I don't know, maybe 2 months. It was a while.
Yeah.
So we did that for a while. After that, we got the word to go home, retrograded back to Kuwait, hopped back on ships, sailed, got to stop in Thailand for 4 days, which was awesome.
What ship was it?
The Juno. I was on the Essex on the way there and the Juno on the way back. Um,
Okay, so tell
but
us. Sorry, I had to interrupt. Tell us Thailand stories because that's man.
oh,
Well, give us the G version of Thailand stories,
the G version, Jesus.
if there's such a thing.
I will say that Thailand is a single man's paradise. Um, but actually, I'd got volunteered for shore patrol while I was there, so I had to walk around in a shore patrol shirt with another Marine and basically kind of keep the peace and all that stuff. But uh, beer was less than $1 back in 2005. I don't know if it still is or not. I doubt it, but it was less than $1. So, um, and of course, there's a lot of entertainment there. So I'll leave it at that. But it was awesome. That's definitely a country I wouldn't mind going back to. There's a lot of good shopping there and a lot to see. Great culture, great food, things like that. But yeah, spent 4 days in Thailand. Then we went back to Okinawa and did all our cleanup and stuff like that. And then eventually made our way back to the States. So that was kind of it in a nutshell.
Yeah, if you talk to Marines about like Westpac deployments, they're gonna mention two countries by name every time: Australia and Thailand.
Australia and Thailand.
Those are the only two countries you ever hear like people talk about. Like those are the two that are just off the wall. So Australia probably not right now, but 2004.
Yeah, no kidding.
So, all right, so you get back to the rear. You just got back from your second combat tour overseas. So what are you thinking now?
So at that point, I'm a short timer. I've got a little bit of time left. I had thought about re-enlisting and going MSG, but when you're young and dumb, you don't really know how good you've got it. So I decided to get out and went out and pursued my education for a little while. And then I think you're the one who told me this. Leaving the Marine Corps is like leaving an ex-girlfriend. Eventually, you want to pick up the phone and give her a call. And so that's what happened, because in 2007, I missed it so much. I said, damn, I'm going to try this reserve thing. And that's when Sergeant Chad met Sergeant Brent at Bravo Company, 1st Battalion, 23rd Marines. Yeah, so I just, but between the reserves and active, all I did was education. I got my bachelor's degree in history, and then went and did the reserve thing. I got to tell you, for those of you out there who are reservists, I apologize for what I'm about to say, but the reserve is a completely different coming off active duty.
I was just about to ask you. That's what the next conversation was going to be. Like, coming out of active duty, talk to us about what your impressions of the reserve. So let me preface this by saying, guys, is the reserves and active duty are they're two different worlds, right? You might have a Lance Corporal that's a freaking doctor making six figures in the reserves. And, he's got a full-blown civilian occupation, right? And he does this, 1 weekend a month. The reserves isn't what put food on the table, right? But it operates differently. And I know I had some preconceived notions going in the reserves and everything else, but I want to hear Chad's perspective, because I remember what mine was going from active duty to the reserve side of the house. Still infantry, mind you.
Yeah, still infantry. My first initial perception was a negative one, I have to say. You had Marines who didn't show up to drill at all. They showed up with no haircuts, all this stuff. It's like nobody took it seriously. And those guys that was kind of the stereotypical perception that a lot of active duty guys had about reservists, is they were, weekend warriors, didn't take it seriously, all that stuff. But the diversity was kind of our strength as well, because like you said, we had a variety of people with a variety of jobs. And I was thoroughly impressed by how, I think on average, the reservist is a little more intelligent than the regular active duty guy, because you got guys who are going to school, guys who are doing the reserve thing until they become officers, all that stuff. You got guys who've been working in the civilian world, a variety of occupations. Like you said, you could have a freaking, Lance Corporal doctor for all you know. So there's a lot of diversity there. But yeah, my initial impression was not a good one at all. And I think I had a lot of trouble adapting to the reserves, because I wanted to, E5 knife hand somebody and that was almost frowned upon in the reserves. So
Well, the
you
other
know,
the
there were
other
more
thing,
friends. There were more friends than they were, you know, Marines. So
yeah, there was definitely a lot of that there, but it is also important to note though that Bravo 123, when Chad and I first joined it at that time frame, they actually were in Iraq too in '04 at the exact same time. And if I remember correctly, I think they were in the Battle of Fallujah. They had a role in that. I think it was like
yes,
securing one side of the city or something along those lines. But you know, so you have a lot of guys that just came back from deployment also, you know, and they're all combat vets, you know, kind of buddy buddy. When you come back from war, guys, it's like it's a different ball game. You know, so that was also going on, right? So
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, so basically after that, you know, I think you and I had an issue with they wanted to send us to Iraq immediately, and we kind of like, nah, now's not a good time, and they let us skip out on that deployment. But we knew that Afghanistan was coming up. That's a place that you and I, neither one of us had been to, so we were kind of hanging around for that. And eventually, it happened. So 2010, we went to Afghanistan to
yeah,
do our thing.
since you brought that up, I want to give some context to that. So Chad and I remember, guys, we just checked into the reserves, right, from active duty. You know, did two combat tours in Iraq, and we check into this reserve infantry company, and then it was like months after we checked in, they're like, "Hey, if you didn't deploy with the battalion, we're sending you over to some other battalion to go deploy again." And we just we just got there, and we're like, whoa, you know, wait a minute, we just did 2 pumps, you know, with our respective active duty units, you know, and I had just moved back to Texas with my wife, and they're wanting to spin us up with a completely different battalion, you know, in a different state to deploy again. And it was all on this preface that, oh, you haven't deployed with the battalion yet. And it was like, dude, we have deployed, just not with you guys. We were deployed with, you know, Chad, first LR. I was with 1-4. It's like, it's not really right. You're putting us in this, you know, you haven't deployed yet bubble to go with this other battalion, you know, when
Exactly.
we both just got back from our second tour. And so it went all the way up to, I think the battalion commander's like, yeah, why the hell are you guys grouping these guys in with these guys that haven't deployed yet? Like, that's ridiculous. So they nixed us from that roster. So that was the context of that.
Yeah. But you know, but before Afghanistan, I do have to give a special shout out to you there, Brent, because we ended up going to one of the hardest, most physically demanding schools in the military, being the MAI course up in Quantico, Virginia. I didn't know what I was getting myself into, man.
Neither did I. So yeah, let's talk about those inner warriors before Afghanistan. So we were both sergeants at the time. Yeah, we had to have been sergeants at the time. And
yeah, so Brent comes up with this bright idea of wanting to go to this school, and I'm just like, yeah, okay, let's go. You know, I got a good enough PFT score. Let's go check it out. And you know, I know you had this interest in martial arts from your job and everything like that. And I had I'd done Taekwondo several years before that, but yeah, it sounded fun. We ended up getting there, and it's in the heat of summer, Black Flag days all over the place, and it is just a PT slaughter fest. My God. I have never been so sore in my entire life. But it was just days and days and days of nothing but physical training, and man.
So to put this in perspective, guys,
but yeah, I think that was kind of one of the major events between in the interwar period.
Yeah, to put this in perspective, because probably guys don't know. So this is the Marine Corps Martial Arts Program, and they have an instructor course at Quantico. So they run 2 different courses there, at least at the time, and it was an instructor course. Then you had the instructor trainer course. Instructor trainer course, in order to get like the red tab, was like, I think it was like a month long. Was that right, Chad? It was like a month long. Maybe he can't hear me. Anyways, so instructor trainer course is like a month long, and just brutalness, right? Well, then there was the instructor course, and you had to go to the instructor course before you could go to the instructor trainer course. But the instructor course was only 2 weeks long, And our Chad and I's unit was going down to Quantico to do their reserve annual training, which is usually like 2 weeks long. And in lieu of going to that, we decided, hey, let's go down to this martial arts instructor course to become MCMAP instructors. So we went to the MACE, the Martial Arts Center of Excellence. So this is like the place where all the curriculum is, done, and everything else. Everything that's MCMAP related emanates from this place. And it
is the belly of the beast.
Yes. And it was an absolute ass kicker. I mean, it was just a haze fest. And on day one, they divided us into 2 squads. Chad was lucky enough to get on the other squad. I went to a squad that had the one female in the class. They put her in our squad. And, I'm going down this route. So at the MACE, it wasn't, oh, you got a handicap because you got a female team. It was like, no, it pays to be a winner. So if your squad lost, you paid for it. So the first thing we did is we went on this like 5-mile run. Then we go to the O course, and we got to freaking do the O course like times 3 in flak and Kevlar, right? And this was going to be winner take all. And we were smoking Chad's squad, right? We were smoking them. And then our female went, and they just caught up, and they beat us. So after that, and then guess what? She quit after that, right? But after that, we had to carry a freaking telephone pole everywhere we went from the rest of the course.
Woodrow.
Yeah. So, and every time we lost an event, which we lost every event going forward because, hey, we're always down a man now. And we had to retire our current pole by going to an LZ and doing workouts, like different workouts with that pole all the way around the LZ. And then when we got to the end of the LZ, we picked up a bigger, heavier pole to graduate to that pole. And so it was the worst, but we graduated, and it was just an absolute beatdown. So,
oh my
sorry,
God,
Chad,
it wasn't. No, that's reminiscing on good times, man. I'm right there with you. I forgot all about that. And then, of course, we get back and we try to teach MCMAP to these reservists who are not in any kind of shape to be doing the kind of stuff we were trying to do. So that kind of fell to the wayside.
Yeah. So, okay, let's fast forward. So, we did some, things like that in interwar years with the reserves. The reserves kind of like a continuing cycle. You just kind of do the same thing. The idea with the reserves is they want to keep you as a basically trained Marine, right? So that the idea being, if your unit gets mobilized, they'll spin you up. They'll take you to that next level, but they want to make sure you're like a master of the basics, or at least try to keep you at the basic level, ready to react, ready to be mobilized. So anyways, going forward, 2009, we get word that they're going to activate the battalion, 1st Battalion, 23rd Marines, to deploy to Helmand Province, Afghanistan. So pick it up from there, brother.
So yeah, we do some workups. We got to stay. What is it, Margarita and Camp Pendleton? We were there for a while, just doing some training, some basic stuff. And then I guess we hopped on the plane, went over. We landed in Kyrgyzstan for a little bit, and then we got hopped on the plane, a different plane. And you guys actually got left behind. I remember that. We had to leave you guys behind, and just our platoon went. And we just hopped on a plane, arrived in Kyrgyzstan. Like 4 days later, we were on a different plane going to Afghanistan, and you guys finally caught up with us. Oh yeah, there's First Sergeant Lemoyne.
Yep.
And Staff Sergeant De La Cruz. Good times.
So I got to bring up this photo because I had to.
So in Afghanistan, what's up?
Oh, I had to tell you, I was watching this show. Trying to remember what it was called. I think it's called The Lieutenant. It's like the old show from the 60s. And it was about like the interwar years. And it was the guy that developed or created the original Star Trek. It's like what he worked on before that. Really, really interesting and awesome television series, but it was only for like one season. But anyway, it's filmed at Camp Pendleton, And these buildings that you see in the background are in the freaking show. Exactly. They look exactly how they
Oh,
look.
wow.
There's like no change. If I can find that picture again, I'll post it up. It is hilarious though.
That's funny. That's funny. But yeah, so we got to Afghanistan. I was with 3rd Platoon, Bravo Company with 3rd Platoon, and we got pushed up to Marja to the district center, which was awesome. Being away from the company and company politics, I'm not going to complain. I know you know what I'm talking about, but we won't go there. So I got to spend the furthest away from the company as possible. Our mission was just to basically security guard the compound. District Governor of Marja. We were his personal security detail. Got to work with some of the ANCOP guys. The ANCOP is like the Afghani special forces almost. They're in counterinsurgency specialists, and there were some motivated hardcore guys. As far as combat goes, I think we got in one firefight. The ANCOP commander actually got killed during that engagement. We took some fire from across the street. At the time, I was a platoon sergeant. I was a staff sergeant. We hit one IED going back down to Camp Dwyer. And that was kind of the extent of our combat. For the most part, it was just security detail. It was fun though. We got to go out on daily patrols. We did a lot of dismounted patrols. Yep, there's the whole gang right there. So yeah, it was fun. It was a lot of fun. But my biggest thing was being promoted to staff sergeant. You're being a platoon sergeant. You're entering slightly into that administrator role. It's not quite as much as being a gunny or being a first sergeant, but you're starting to get a little more administrative in your duties. And the Marine Corps started to be a little less fun for me at that point. But oh yeah, that's a picture that was taken in Fallujah with Donald Rumsfeld.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot to put that one up earlier.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, that was pretty much Afghanistan. I know you guys had a lot of fun doing aerial interdiction and crap like that. So, yeah, that was Afghanistan in a nutshell.
I'm gonna put up a photo here in a second. You don't know which one I'm about to put up, but I gotta tell this story here. 1 second. Bear with me, guys. All right. So Chad and I are platoon sergeants, right? So he's a platoon sergeant of 3rd Platoon. I'm platoon sergeant of 2nd Platoon. And I want to tell you guys that the M4 with M203 grenade launcher is not the TO weapon of a platoon sergeant. But
it was for me, damn it.
Yeah, that's what I'm about to say. Now, one of the perks of being a reservist is it's a little different than active duty, right? You can kind of get away with doing stuff a little unorthodox. So yeah, so both Chad and I, as platoon sergeants, made little drug deals to make sure that we had M203s going into Afghanistan.
Oh, I forgot all about that, man.
And then another perk, kind of circling back on like the difference between active duty and reserves. It's like, man, my guys, like when we had a patrol base, right? And we had gun trucks. And if those gun trucks broke, man, I had actual mechanics in my platoon that could work on those gun trucks and get them back up in the fight. And they didn't have to, send them back to the bigger fob to get maintenance, and God knows how long they're going to be out and deadline and stuff. Like I had guys doing all kinds of stuff, making like plumbing and all kinds of working shitters. I mean, just unbelievable stuff that your typical 18, 19-year-old straight out of high school that goes active duty infantry like doesn't know. And the reserve contract is 6 years as opposed to 4 year. So these guys are around a lot longer. So the reserves definitely had some benefits. You got that outside knowledge, and like what Chad said earlier, your reserve Marine tends to be not, it's not 100%, but there's definitely some smarter cats and dogs there in that reserve element because they have that civilian occupation that they're managing full time in addition to, the reserve commitment. So,
yeah. Diversity, definitely the strength of the reserve. Yeah, absolutely. No argument here. So Afghanistan was about, we were there for what, like almost a year, and then we came home. And at that point, I had pretty much decided that it was time to move on. I was not having fun anymore. Staff sergeant was not. I miss being a squad leader most of all, and can't really go backwards with a rocker on your sleeve. So at that point, I decided it's not any fun anymore. I'm probably going to get out and move on to other things, and so I left reserves. But I continue. I kind of continued my military service and my education. I went on to a master's degree in military history. My thesis focused on the difference between Army and Marine Corps infantry squad compositions in Vietnam and how combat effective each were. And my second master's degree, I did a similar thesis on using insurgent doctrine to fight using insurgent doctrine to fight insurgents, basically out guerrilla the guerrilla. For those of you who are David Hackworth fans. So that's kind of where I'm at now, and I'm looking at pursuing a PhD here. Probably going to focus on the guerrilla campaign in the Carolinas for the American Revolutionary War. So my military service is kind of extended into my education as well, and I'm going to continue to pursue that. But that's how I ended up where I am.
That's awesome, man. And like I said, when I was thinking about doing this, particular series of episodes, you were the number one guy in my mind. That's like, hey, I want to bring before a camera because, dude, there's so many. During my career, I've met so many Marines with so many interesting stories, and you always hear this bullshit narrative that the military service fucks guys up and doesn't get you anywhere in life. And here you got guys like Chad and I, and there's, hundreds of thousands more just like us that, they do their time, they deploy overseas, and it's like the military sets them up for success down the road. Chad's about to get his doctorate in freaking military history and whatnot. And I mean, shit, most of your college was all paid for, off the government's dime. So. Yep. Just amazing success stories, and there's by no means is he the only one, and there's many other out there, and that's why I wanted to do this. I can start bringing guys up here and putting them before the camera so that people can hear guys' stories. I mean, they're so unique. Everybody's got a different story, right? So you said you were you no longer having fun. So three combat tours was enough.
I just, the more administrative it got, the less fun it was. I had so much fun being a squad leader, and even initially as a platoon sergeant, it would kind of have a little nostalgia to it. But it just, after Afghanistan, my job in Afghanistan, me personally, was more administrative because I did some administrative. I was scheduling flights and stuff like that. I wasn't really. And sometimes I'd stand post, but I mean that's not what you sign up to do in the infantry. Right. And I know it would only get worse with putting on another rocker as a company gunny. Seeing how Gunny Alfred, I miss that man more. We had a lot of good times with old Gunny Alfred, man. I miss that man. Do you know what he's doing right now?
Yeah, he's a sheriff, I believe. So,
like the actual elected sheriff or just a deputy?
Deputy, I believe.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, wow. Oh, I miss that man. I miss him so much.
Black Rhino.
Big Gay Al.
If he's watching this right now, he's gonna be calling us pissed in a minute. So, oh man, so.
Love you, Gunny. It's from a place of love.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Well, cool, man. So that was your military career in a nutshell. How many total years did you end up serving?
With IRR time, it was roughly 14, but without IRR time, it was about 10 total.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome, man. Well, I think that's about it. Unless you can think of anything else that's come up down the road or something we missed.
No, I think all the good stories have been touched on.
I'll tell you what, before we call it quits, let's give it like 5 or 10 more minutes. If anybody in the comment section has a question they want to ask Chad, now's the time to do it and, get his response. He's had a pretty extensive career. If you guys joined the stream late, Chad joined the United States Marine Corps before 9/11. He literally 9/11 happened while he was in recruit training. He went to the 2003 Iraq invasion in first LAR. And then after that, redeployed back in 2004, took part in the Fallujah offensive, and then came back and redeployed with me to Helmand Province, Afghanistan in 2010, 2011 timeframe. So.
Yeah, I'm looking through the comments right now, seeing if there's anything that I missed. I haven't really been paying attention.
Yeah, so that's one thing when we have our normal streams on, Monday. I spend a lot of time looking at comments, and I sometimes miss like what people are saying in the stream. So it's a hard juggle. But this one, I pretty much devoted most, 100% attention to you because I don't want to miss anything. So if you guys have been posting questions and stuff in the comment section, I apologize. But this is more of an interview format as opposed to dialogue. But here you go, Chad. What's your favorite weapons platform? Somebody asked. SOCOM 9710.
Ooh. Man. That you're gonna get me in a philosophical debate right here. I've always been somebody who likes believes in reliability. I've trained on the AR-15 my entire career, military career. I'm familiar with it. I know how to shoot it. I got rifle expert every time I went to the range. In the Marine Corps, they want you to shoot up to 500 yards, which is a long distance for open iron sights. At least it used to be iron sights. Now it's with the ACOG, which is a whole nother. I'm not a big fan of optics. I want to go back to iron sights, but that's another debate. That can be next week's topic, Brent. But I love reliability. I'm a big fan of the AK-47 because you can do all kinds of fun stuff with it. You can put it in the mud and fire it, and it'll keep going. So if I had to choose one weapon to go into war with, whatever that war may be, it would probably be an AK-47, probably chambered in 5.56 because of ballistics. But I love the reliability of the AK-47.
Yeah, you've always a lot of people probably don't know, but when Chad and I were in the reserves together, we trained a lot together outside of the Marine Corps. And that was kind of Chad's thing, man. He always came with an AK to train with. So.
Oh yeah, I love reliability. Please bring back the M14s. You get an argument from me, man. That was a great weapon. And it doubled as a club too. It was so damn heavy, you could beat the shit out of somebody with it.
I got a funny story about Chad. The very first time he and I went to go shoot, he came out, and I've got your typical freaking station in California. I had BH, so I got an apartment, and I literally had the bare minimum, right? A shotgun and a pistol, and that was all I owned. And so Chad comes out, and I thought I was high and mighty because I had bought an SKS. So I had my SKS, shotgun, and pistol. Chad shows up. He opens up his trunk, and he just starts pulling guns out. And then I think 10 minutes later, he pulls out his 20th gun. And my man card was officially taken from me that day. It took many years.
Yeah, you got in a little trouble with your wife too.
Yeah. I remember my old lady.
Yeah, we spent all day out there.
Yeah, she's screaming dinner's ready, And I'm like, God, we still got like 19 more guns to shoot. Oh my God. Good times.
Good times. Yeah.
All right, man. Well, I got one last question before we close this out, man. What is your most memorable experience, fondest memory that you can take away from the United States Marine Corps?
I would have to say it was Thanksgiving in Fallujah. And we had occupied a house that happened to have some chickens in the backyard. And Thanksgiving Day was slowly approaching. And I got the bright idea, hey, let's clean some birds and have ourselves a feast. Well, we had two choices. We could go down to the company CP and get the standard Marine Corps hot chow for Thanksgiving, or, hey, we can make ourselves a feast. And there was an abandoned store couple blocks down that we had gotten some pasta and some other things. And we proceeded to clean those birds and have ourselves a Thanksgiving meal. It was my vehicle and a cat vehicle. For those of you who know what cat is, CAAT. It's an anti-tank unit. They're usually mounted on Humvees. So their vehicle and our vehicle shared a Thanksgiving feast, and it was a pretty memorable occasion. And inside the chaos of Fallujah, it was a good memory. So that's something I'll take with me to my grave.
That's awesome, brother. All right, guys, we're gonna wrap this up. And man, it's just been fantastic. Chad, once again, man, thanks for coming on and
sharing
your experience, your military career with us. I definitely want to do this some more. And if you guys aren't familiar, Chad is pretty much been a regular on the standard live streams that we hold every Monday. So you'll definitely see more of Chad coming down the pipe in the very future. So once again, guys, thanks for coming on. And I know I've seen the comments going rapidly through this whole thing. So I know you guys have been, paying a lot of attention, and appreciate everybody coming on tonight and watching. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to leave a comment. And again, stay tuned. We're going to have more of these interviews with warfighters in the very future. So have a good night.